Hey guys, it's Maggie and I am back today, and today I have a very special guest, Meghan here. I'm gonna keep looking back and forth because I'm looking at my camera, but I also want to see your face. So we had a whole discussion beforehand. But yes, we are talking about a subject that I get asked about so much on my channel. And this is about pregnancy with an ostomy, with not having a colon. And this is something that obviously I have not experienced yet, but Meghan has. So I am so fortunate she's going to share her story with us, and she's going to be on my channel. So thank you so much, Meghan.
Thank you for having me.
We have known each other for a number of years, online mainly, and we just met in person at the UOAA conference like 6 weeks ago.
Yes.
And you're very tall. That's what I came away with. It was like,
Everyone I was thinking that earlier. Every time people meet me, they're like, oh my gosh, you're way taller in person than I thought you'd be. I don't know. But I know it's crazy that we just met because we used to work together years ago. We've known each other through social media, and now it's like worlds have finally collide and we got to meet, and yeah, it was awesome. And now I get to do this with you. So thank you so much for having me on.
no, thank you. I learned so much from Meghan at the conference. She spoke on this exact topic. And well, Zach and I were both there, so we both learned a lot. And I mean, people were just like engulfed with your story. You're just so well spoken. So can't wait to talk about this. But first, before we get into it, we are sponsored. We do have a sponsor for this video. Compitech has been wonderful in supporting both of us over like the last year. And so gratefully, they are sponsoring this video as well. I thought I would show this. I didn't realize. I went through this whole thing. I have 2 diamonds left. These are my gelling sachets that I love from Compitech, and you can get a free sample. I'll put a link in the description in a pinned comment. These babies are amazing. This is what I use for my crazy output. But yeah, I normally just I have them in a closet and I just grab in the closet and pull them out. Pulled them out today and realized a little low.
Yeah, I'm amazed that you have gone through them because that tub feels so big. It's like never ending, like the bottomless bag type of thing. So that's really amazing. That's kind of a feat that you have gotten to.
It really is. So if you are interested in any samples, they have the Essenta line. They've got this lovely deodorizer. It smells so good. And the moldable flange, which I think is the easiest flange out there. It's actually, Zach and I are talking about doing the ostomy bag change video where he attempts it. That's the flange I'm giving him. That's the easiest one.
Oh my gosh. My husband and I just did that.
Yay!
Because I use all of those products that you just mentioned. That's my daily routine, all those products. And yeah, it was awesome. Have to do it. That's a whole nother discussion we can have in another video, just teaching someone how important it is to teach someone close to you how to change your ostomy bag. It was such a cool experience. So you guys are going to have fun with it.
Awesome. But yes, okay. Well, thank you to Compitech for sponsoring this video again. Check them out in the link below. But let's get to talking about pregnancy with a stoma, with our very unique anatomy.
Yeah.
Actually, before that, though, I would love for you to share a little bit about your story because very similar to me, you have IBD with an ostomy, but getting to the ostomy point looked a little bit different. So if you could share about that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So I have Crohn's disease, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's when I was 13 years old. And it was a situation of I started having horrible diarrhea, and I was having stomach pain, and I was having bloody diarrhea. And so my parents, thank goodness, felt like, okay, this isn't right. We need to go to the doctor and find out what's going on. So I went to the doctor, and it was completely demoralizing because they basically told me, you're just a nervous child. There's nothing wrong with you. You are just nervous. And it was kind of like, okay, that's it. But thankfully, my parents said no. there's definitely something wrong. That's not the answer. We're going to keep exploring, getting another opinion. So I saw a second doctor, and months after testing, they discovered that it actually was Crohn's disease. Not that I was a nervous child. And then kind of like fast forward, I became really, really sick, and I was too sick to go to school. So I was a freshman in high school. I went 1 month my freshman year, and I had to be homeschooled the rest of the year. I was too sick to get out of bed. I was on Remicade, going to monthly infusions. And this was when infusions were like 8 hours long because you were a child. So these were like 8-hour infusions once a month. But yeah, and I mean, I think like most of us going through this, I was just extremely, extremely sick, giving you like the very abbreviated version. I was super sick. And so I was homeschooled for a year. I thankfully went into remission. I felt much better. I was able to go back to school, finish high school, started college. I was in remission for 5 years. And so once I hit like my sophomore year of college, I started to fall back out. And I started having those really bad symptoms come back. And so it was time to, get back in the game, try these different drugs. I ended up forming antibodies to Remicade, so I could no longer take Remicade, which had originally been my miracle drug. And I pretty much went through what felt like everything. I did everything. At the time I had done methotrexate, Humira, Entyvio worked for a while, and then a couple years later, life happened. I met my husband in college. As soon as we graduated, we ended up getting married. And then 8 months after we got married, I went in for a routine colonoscopy, and it was like the best I had been feeling in a long time. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. I am going to go into this colonoscopy. I honestly was excited to hear what they were going to say, because I thought, I'm feeling so good. They're going to tell me that this medication is working. Everything's great. And I came out of the colonoscopy, and they kind of had some questions. They were unsure, and they saw lots of scarring. So it wasn't really the news I wanted to hear, but I was still kind of like, well, I'm still feeling good. So, things are fine. Everything's fine. And then a week later, I was at home by myself in the kitchen. My husband was at work. And I got that call from my doctor, basically saying that my colon had turned precancerous, and they had found high-grade dysplasia deep in the tissue of my colon, that I was going to need to come in immediately to talk about different options and like how to handle this. And so that was obviously incredibly difficult news to hear. And I can remember just like collapsing in my kitchen by myself, crying, just thinking, I don't want to die. That's immediately what I thought. I don't want to die. I'm so scared. I don't want to die. And I don't know what's going to happen to me. So I went and I met with my surgeon, and he gave me 3 options. Of course, do nothing and just see what happens and let life take its course. Or I could have part of my colon removed, but I would have to come back every 3 or so months and have routine cancer checks. Basically, they would do like a colonoscopy every so often to make sure cancer is not progressing. And then the last option was to have everything removed and have a permanent ileostomy as well as a Barbie butt.
Wow.
And I was adamantly against that, like so many of us. Immediately thought, nope, that's and it's like crazy to like think about this, but I was to the point where I was so concerned about vanity. And truthfully, I will admit, I was totally vain. I was 24 when I had surgery, and I was willing to live with the threat of cancer to not have an ostomy bag, because I didn't want to, I wanted like a flat stomach and like beautiful body, and I wanted to look beautiful. And I didn't think I could do that with an ostomy bag. And so what changed my mind, I was adamantly against this. I fell into that deep tunnel of like, not depression, but, feelings of like, I'm just sad. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I don't understand what's going on. How can this happen to me? And so I spiraled in that tunnel for so long. And then I just felt so sick of feeling bad, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to go to my surgeon, see what he has to say. So I went, and he had a really intimate conversation with me because, he doesn't want to like hand out stomas every day. He doesn't want to do it unless it's absolutely necessary. And I think it was definitely necessary with me. And so he said to me, because I went into this appointment thinking I'm not getting a bag. So he went in and he said to me, imagine being a young mom with young children finding out you have cancer. And I get goosebumps every time I say that because it was just earth shattering. And that sentence, that comment changed my life forever. And so I left that appointment with my total proctocolectomy with a permanent ileostomy scheduled because I couldn't imagine that. The only, I've always wanted to have a family. That's been so important to me. And so just thinking, putting myself in that situation of I could be a young mom and cancer could pop up. I just couldn't fathom that. So I left that appointment with my surgery scheduled, and here I am 7 years later with a permanent ileostomy and 2 babies.
Wow. See, I totally understand. Like, I never thought about pregnancy or having children when it came to the ostomy.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came time for the proctocolectomy, that was when I was, do I want to feel good and risk not being able to get pregnant, maybe naturally, or, not. So when I saw your story, I think you were one of the first people that I saw share online about the surgeries you've had and then carrying a pregnancy, giving birth. It was such encouragement to me. I mean, it really just, I remember showing my phone to Zach. I was like, Zach, look at this.
No, that's so sweet. Like, it just, yeah, I mean, it's crazy because there is not a lot of research out there about this. And a lot of people don't talk about it because it's not a common thing, but it's something that everyone wants to know about. And so when I was ready to start a family and we started to try to get pregnant, there was nothing out there. And this also wasn't really a conversation I had with my doctors or my stoma nurses. The one conversation I can remember my dad actually having, it's when I was like 13, getting ready to start Remicade. He pulled the doctor out of the room. He doesn't even know that I know this, that he had this conversation. But, he pulled the doctor out of the room and he said, if she goes on this medication, is she still going to be able to have children? It's going to impact her fertility in the future. And of course, I was mortified, 13 years old, thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my dad is asking the doctor this question. But I'm so thankful he did ask that, looking back on it as a 31-year-old woman with 2 children. But ostomy wise, like, it was never spoken about. Like, my doctors, we never talked about, would I be able to get pregnant with an ostomy? Would my proctocolectomy impact my ability to get pregnant? What would childbirth be like? So it was kind of going into this whole thing blind. Also, because there was nothing on social media. There were like not really any articles written about it. I hadn't had those conversations with my doctors. And 2, I think a big point in my story to remember, or that I hadn't even mentioned, my husband was military. He's no longer active duty, but he was military at the time. So we moved all the time. We moved every couple of years. So I was constantly having to change doctors. So when we got pregnant, we had just moved. So I didn't have a doctor yet. I didn't have a doctor that I could ask all these questions, all these ostomy related pregnancy questions. But yeah, that's why I love to talk about it and share it, because there's just not enough information or research about it out there.
Yeah. And I think too, not just for those of us that have gone through the surgeries or maybe facing it, all of the other people out there, the whole world population, they're curious about this and
Just
people want
want
to
to know.
know. And I think you showing you living your life, doing all the things that you wanted to, everything that you had planned for, even though you have an ostomy and you have a proctophilectomy, that is huge. And it just breaks the stigma that us people with ostomies keep fighting.
Yes, and we can live totally normal lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Too, it's like most of the questions come from curious people who don't have ostomy. So, yeah, totally.
And I know we get our best comments from those people too.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's all I have to say about that.
So tell me what the trying to conceive part of this looked like for you, if you're comfortable sharing. And anything you don't feel comfortable, just tell me.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. I'm an open book. So, absolutely. Um, so we started trying, and, you know, we didn't really know what we were doing. I think because like you think back to, when you're in high school and you think, sex education, and it's one of those like, do not have sex. If you have sex, you will get pregnant.
Yeah.
And so you have this notion in your head of like, okay, I'm going to have sex. We're going to try for a baby and I'm going to get pregnant the first time. And that is not how it works at all. It's actually pretty hard to get pregnant, because everything has to align absolutely perfectly. Like literally the stars have to align to create a baby. And so when we first started trying, we tried for about a year and a half, and I was doing like all the things. I was taking my temperature. I don't know if you've heard of that, but like taking your temperature to see different spikes. I was reading all of these like natural fertility books, and I had ovulation strips, and I didn't know why I wasn't getting pregnant. And of course, I thought it's because I have an ostomy. I'm not getting pregnant because I have an ostomy. And so my husband, we moved to Colorado. And as soon as we got to Colorado, my husband had to deploy for about 4 months. So we had 2 weeks together to unpack our house, and then he was gone, and I was all the way across the US by myself, figuring out this new place. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this. I don't want to waste any time. I'm going to go to a fertility doctor, find out what's going on and why I can't get pregnant, so that when he gets home, we can get pregnant. And so I went, and it was very, very, very insightful. And, whether you have an ostomy or not, it's totally worth it to talk to a fertility doctor. Honestly, just because I learned so much about myself and my body and just how everything works. It was a wonderful experience. But turns out they were not concerned about my ostomy at all. And I was dealing with a bunch of hormonal imbalances. And so my hormones were so out of whack and just crazy. And, looking back, I didn't even think about that, but I should have, because my menstrual cycle was like always very irregular. I would go months without a cycle, and then I would have one. And so it all, is related and attributes to each other. So my hormonal imbalances were crazy. So as soon as he got home, they said, okay, we're gonna try Clomid. We're gonna put you on Clomid. And Clomid basically causes you to menstruate. So they put me on Clomid, and they said, you're going to try it 3 times. And if it doesn't work on the 3rd time, then we will have to explore like IVF and see what would happen with IVF. And so I was kind of thinking like, all right, I don't want to get my hopes up. Let's just see what happens. They also had told me, which I tell everyone now, because this is like the best tip and the best bit of information. They said when you're trying to conceive, get the ovulation tests that have a smiley face and take one every single day of the month. And they said, as soon as you see that smiley face pop up, you need to go try to make a baby. And so I did that. I went home and I took the Clomid, and it was like right when my husband got home from his first deployment or his second deployment. And I did the ovulation tests, and I felt like I'm never going to see the smiley face. It's never going to pop up. It was kind of demoralizing. And then literally when I least expected it, smiley face popped up. And so miraculously, we got pregnant on our first round of Clomid, and it was pretty amazing. So we got pregnant our first round. And then with my son, the trying phase, we kind of like joke, and my husband jokes that I tricked him, which I did not trick him. It took us like a year and a half to get pregnant with our daughter. Well, our son, when our daughter turned 1, we thought, okay, we're going to try. We want to start trying when she turns 1 for baby number 2, because it took us so long to get pregnant with our daughter. What if it takes us years and years and years to get pregnant with our son? We don't want to have this giant age gap between the two. And miraculously, again, we got pregnant the first time we tried with our son. So we were just shocked. So they are 22 months apart. They're right now it's kind of funny to say I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, but our daughter's getting ready to turn 4 in October. But yeah, it's just like, it's so weird and crazy how these things work, and just like learning your body. But that's why I'm so thankful I talked to the fertility clinic, and I will tell everyone, if you ever have any questions, talk to a fertility doctor. It's very insightful. And obviously pretty helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm making the call tomorrow for us,
Yay!
which I don't know when this video is going to go up, but
I hope this call has inspired you to do. No, I'm just joking.
I have the number written down. I've been planning it. It's just like getting the nerve to do it, and I've already done it once, so like I feel like I could do it. But what we learned the first time, I mean, I feel like this was the most knowledgeable doctor, not just about fertility, but even stuff like adenomyosis. Something I have, it's sort of semi-related to endometriosis, but even my gynecologist didn't know about it. And my fertility doctor was like, oh yeah, very familiar. So it was very refreshing. But anyways, on that little aside, I remember a post that you made when you were, I think, about to deliver or within a few days of delivering, and you had the fetal monitor on, and I think your stomach was out there in the open in a room full of a bunch of other people. What was that was like?
The first time. Yeah, that was the first time that's ever happened. Yeah. Well, I had that fetal monitor on because, and that was like not ostomy related at all. I ended up having really high blood pressure. I was at 38 weeks with like super high blood pressure. And so I had to be monitored. But that was the first time my ostomy bag had ever been seen in public. And I was also very mortified. Of course, now I'm like, yeah, wear my ostomy out on the beach. I'm going to wear a bikini at the beach. Like, who cares? But this was, years ago, and I was horrified, but I just went with it, and like no one batted an eye and no one looked at it. The nurses literally didn't say anything. And of course I'm like, oh, I have an ostomy, like, and they're just like, okay, whatever, it's fine, like we don't need to deal with that. But
they're not focused on that. They're focused on the baby.
Exactly. I was like way more insecure about it than anyone else in that room. And honestly, I don't even think half the people, probably probably like 90% of the people didn't even see or couldn't even tell. But I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So yeah, that was the first time. Yeah, I never really thought about that being the first time the public had seen my bag. So
That's what got you out there, and now you're everywhere with your ostomy bag. So it worked
right?
out.
It's a steep, yeah.
Now,
Anyway.
the big question that I always get is
Mhm.
it even possible to have a vaginal delivery? And people just
Mhm.
assume, no way, Jose. But I
Yeah.
think you have a different story on that.
Yeah, I was one of those people because once again, everything I had seen, which wasn't a lot, but everything I had seen online and on social media and like researching was C-section. You're going to have a C-section. And I also thought I was going to have a C-section because I have a Barbie butt. And I was so concerned about tearing. You know, I have a lot of scar tissue down there. So I was scared to death that I was going to push and baby's head was going to cause me to tear. And it would basically be like recovering from Barbie butt surgery all over again. And so I did have a different experience. I had 2 vaginal deliveries, and thankfully, I had the world's best OBGYN out in Colorado. Shout out if you know this person or anyone who ever watches this, Dr. Bierling. She was amazing. But yeah, I went into her office with my husband when I was pregnant with our daughter, and basically just talking about any concerns I had, because this was my first baby and I also have an ostomy. And this is also something that doctors don't see every day, you know? So it's not this like routine, oh, they have an ostomy thing for them. This is like, you know, some baby doctors or OBGYNs may have never seen a pregnant woman with an ostomy delivering. So I went to her office and we talked and I expressed my concerns and she said, well, can you still push? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, can you still push? Like, can you still bear down? Because when you're having a baby, you're bearing down. Essentially, it sounds kind of like vulgar or horrible, but it's you bear down as in like you're going number 2.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I guess, I guess I can. Like I haven't pooped normally for years, but I guess. And so I laid down on the table and she checked and she was like, yeah, you have great muscle control. You still have muscle control down here. You can deliver vaginally, and that's what you're going to do. And so I thought, okay, this is great. And with our son, it was really interesting because at this point we had moved back across the US. We had my daughter in Colorado. My husband got out of the military because, he was gone so much and we didn't want to have to do that with our kids. And so we moved back to Virginia, where I'm originally from. And I saw my baby doctor there in Virginia, and my very first appointment. And, I was giving her my history. It was my second pregnancy, telling her everything about my first. And I said, I had a vaginal delivery, even though I have an ostomy bag. And she said, I am so glad you told me that, because if you hadn't said that to me, you were going to have a C-section. And it's crazy the difference, it's just knowledge and experience. It's just crazy the difference between doctors, And so I'm so thankful I had mentioned that. But yeah, both vaginal deliveries went beautifully. And the first one, like I said, I was so concerned about tearing. Literally my nightmare was I'm going to tear and then I'm going to have to basically go through Barbie butt surgery again, Barbie butt recovery with a newborn.
Oh no.
And my experience with Barbie butt was pretty terrible because moisture had gotten back there and I essentially had formed a diaper rash, because you have to keep the area dry.
Yep.
And it was one of the most painful things I had ever experienced. I don't even remember what ostomy recovery was like because I was dealing with the Barbie butt at the same time. And that was the most painful thing. And so I was so worried about having a newborn and then having, to go through this recovery again. So my doctor said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do a lateral episiotomy if it looks like you're going to tear. And basically what that means is if it looked like I was going to tear when I was pushing the baby out, they made a tiny, tiny little lateral snip down there to kind of help give leeway for the baby. And they ended up doing that. And I think I had like 2 stitches, but it was perfect. I had no issues. There was no tearing in the Barbie butt area, no issues at all. Something else I also did prior to my first delivery was pelvic floor therapy. It was recommended to me. If you've ever done it, which I know you have, it's awkward and it's weird, but it is good.
Absolutely.
It's awkward and it's weird, but it's really good. And so I think that helped a lot too, because that really helped like relax, but also stretch out the muscles down there because I was so concerned about tearing. But yeah, like my biggest takeaway from that was just advocating for myself. I was so open with my doctor and I felt really comfortable with her. And so I was able to express all my concerns, and we spent forever. I think we were in her room for like an hour and a half ironing this out, which was wonderful because as a patient, I felt heard and I felt genuinely cared about, and she was genuinely invested in me. So yeah, just like advocating for yourself. If you have those fears, tell your doctor. And I think the biggest thing too is come out of those meetings with a game plan, because obviously pregnancy and delivery, like nothing ever goes as planned, but kind of having some idea is worth it. And I think too, like it gives you peace of mind, but it also is helpful for the doctors because like I said, a lot of them have never seen a pregnant woman with an ostomy. So working together to form this plan can really help make both parties feel more confident in the end. Definitely advocate and form a plan.
Absolutely. And I keep thinking like somebody's going to watch this video, multiple people are going to watch this video, and the relief they're going to have looking for the future. And also, it's supposed to be an exciting time, like definitely stressful, but exciting. And I think a lot of the medical stress, it just gets in the way, takes away from the experience. And I feel like you sharing your story is giving that back to people. It makes it exciting. It makes it possible for people like myself. I'm sitting here like, oh, yay.
So I hope so. I mean, that's why I will scream about this topic forever, because like, I tell everyone, oh, well, I was kind of like the guinea pig for myself because I didn't know anyone that had gone through this. I didn't have anyone to talk to. There were no videos like this circulating around the internet, So I hope that someone way out there does watch this and can kind of feel a little bit more at ease, and also get an idea of like, okay, this is something I should bring up to my doctor. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's a very intimate story to share online, but people like you are just making a huge difference in so many lives. And I'm grateful to call you a friend. And now we know each other in person. So
no, now we're definitely friends.
I feel like we're close enough. Pennsylvania and Virginia, not that far.
We need to do that. Like, I'm telling you, I'm going to come up to Pennsylvania and see you guys this fall. We need to do it.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. We're going to have to plan it. You have my number.
I know. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you so much. I don't know how to end this video. It was so great. I mean, how do I end a video like that? Thank you for watching, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know that you did. And thank you again to Meghan for sharing her story. We will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.